A very good evening to everyone, and welcome to this very special session, the first of its kind, organized by CMT Charter holders for the benefit of those who've completed their level 3 and are now going to start their journey towards getting their charter, the application process. So, I will not take too much time now. This session will be available. It's being streamed live right now, and it will be available for posterity on both our Discord platform and the YouTube link as well, which I'll share later, and we'll have the recording in our video archives. So, without much ado, let me invite our speakers for the day. Um, Prasenjit Biswas and Mohit Handa. Mohit, in fact, is also the person you can credit with setting up the Discord server that you are on. And Mohit and Prasenjit together have been some of the most active people in ensuring that we can create a fun learning environment for our members in order to make the best of this entire journey. So, without much ado, I'll pull myself off the stream and uh, I'll turn the session over to Mohit and Prasenjit. Kaizad and I will be available on Discord as well as on the various channels across Discord to relay questions, etc., back to Mohit and Prasenjit. So, with that, all the best to you all and have a great day.
So, hi everyone. I hope my voice is clear. And it's been quite a bit of weeks of thinking that how we have been having a very strong growth in candidates, and there is a lot of enthusiasm in people joining the CMT program, and we have been witnessing a lot of attraction towards this, and it was critical to make the world understand. To the new world, I would say that what the CMT program is all about and how you should use it post completing your program, right? So once you complete your exams and you enter the sponsorship process, it's not just a sponsorship process. It's it's kind of entering a new phase in your life. So some perspective has to be laid out for this. So I've been discussing with Prasanjit a lot, and he has been quite vocal about a lot of things. We have discussed with Milan, with Anindya, Forum, Viraj, a lot of charter holders, and we've come out with a kind of a presentation. We would like to discuss about the sponsorship process, what a candidate should keep in mind, what things are important for him to know, understand for the future, with obviously technical answers in key, with the main subject in focus, right? So, Joel, can you stream the PPT thing also? Meanwhile, I would like to just invite Prasenjit from my behalf also. Thanks for helping me on building this presentation. Okay, so we both will be here, and Prasenjit, I'll just go through the yeah. So
Good to go, Mohit.
I'll be going through the presentation, and I'll be involving Prasenjit to and fro to share thoughts on this PPT what we have made. All right. So get started. Okay. So this is the main thing. You clear your level 3 exams, or you even clear your level 2 exams, you will want to start your sponsorship process. Okay. So what is the sponsorship process all about? Okay. First thing I would like to say, obtaining the sponsorship is a beginning. Okay, it's a beginning. Now, what beginning to what? That's what we'll discuss today. It is not the end of the journey. Okay, that's the first primary message from my side and all the charter holders who have been in the association for a long time. What is the sponsorship for? Okay, typically we hear that the sponsorship is to acquire the CMT charter, CMT badge, but what people forget is the sponsorship is basically to acquire professional membership in the CMT association. All right, this is the key highlight. You enter to be a part of the CMT association, and you enter to build, to develop a relationship, and obviously a relationship impliedly means long term in nature. Okay, that is what you actually ask sponsorship for. You do not ask someone that I applying sponsorship for the CMT charter directly. That doesn't mean anything. You get to apply CMT designation to at the end of your name because you are a member of the you are a professional member of the CMT association, right? And as you know, the typical the main requirement is one who acquires professional membership and clears all three exams of the CMT program is allowed to use a CMT designation. That's the key highlight of course. So now let's just give some thought on what does a professional membership should mean to a candidate. I mean, before I can go ahead, I would just like to ponder up 2-3 minutes with Prasanjit here. Like, what does a professional membership, as in, I'm not referring to the sponsorship aspect. Like, how does one think about his future when he wants a professional membership? Like, so Prasanjit, your thoughts first.
Yeah, hi. Good evening to everyone. And today's discussion is very interesting, and it's going to be, I guess, a very critical going ahead for all of you. So, what is a professional membership? Basically, the idea of getting a professional membership is not only the CMT badge. It's just not the CMT tag behind your name. So it is much deeper than that. So when it would come to a professional membership, basically the essence is that you are going to be kind of a reflection of the highest standards of technical analysis from an application standpoint. In addition to that, it is also about the ethical code of conduct that every charter holder is expected uh, to practice in his dealings. And then the other thing is that the passion that is should be there ideally once you become a charter holder, and then you think of kind of contributing back to the community, and in a way adding the whole knowledge base. So basically, it's much deeper, which we are going to obviously discuss in the subsequent slides. Thank you.
Okay. So that's good. Like, I would like to say that when you are looking towards professional membership, you are looking towards building up your career, building up, expanding your professional space, your expertise, networking with fellow charter members, and all this combined with the help of the community, with the help of associations support, you grow your you grow your knowledge base, you grow your understanding about all field subjects relevant to financial markets, technical answers, and much more. Okay, so that's a key thing. And if you be part of a group, be a member of a group, certainly you have to add value and you have to get value. Both things are imperative for being a member, right? So let's just uh, go ahead with the presentation. So Joel, can you add back the presentation? Right. So this is the key thing which one must understand. Okay. So purpose of sponsorship. So I would like to just quote few sentences of a key letter from the president of the CMT Association, Brett William, who's also a CMT and a CAIA, and he has. I have already posted this letter. This letter is already there on the website, but just I want to quote few key points. Okay, he quotes that our mission is not only to promote the use of technical answers, but there are two additional components or facets to our mission that are extremely important to understanding why we exist and what we aim to accomplish as a group. First, we aim to attract and retain a membership of professionals devoting their efforts to using and expanding the field of technical analysis and sharing their body of knowledge with their fellow members. Right? So, if you are entering a professional membership, you obviously there is an expectation that you make an effort to use and expand the field of technical answers in your research space, and you also share your body of knowledge, like what you are, what you do, what you experience, and stuff like that, right? Second is, we will establish, maintain, and encourage the highest standards of professional competence and ethics among technical analysts. Now, you all know that technical analysts are involved in a very tricky business of offering someone an advice or consultancy where the other person applies or puts his money, right? Such a field does require ethical standards and ethical standards of the highest nature. Of course, you need professional competence also, but that is where you will grow. Ethics is something you have to learn and I mean, it's something a more subjective and more inherent kind of a thing. But that is where, when you have a professional membership, you kind of showcase that you are bound by an ethical code of conduct also when you have that CMT tag next to your name. All right, that's the key thing. The CMT designation proves to employers that you possess a thorough knowledge of technical answers concepts and have a competent ability to apply them, right? But it cannot be the only requirement of membership in the association. So that is why when Mr. Brett refers to those points I've read earlier, is that it's not that only because you're competent in technical answers, you have it's an enough requirement to be a member in the association. You need to do what has been mentioned in the earlier 2 points, right? So now let's, what we just discussed before, go in point by point at some clarity level. Meaning of professional membership. Professional membership reflects high levels of professional competence in technical answers, right? It reflects that one's intention to be a part of community of esteemed professionals, like, you feel proud about being this part of community, so that when you are a professionally competent person, you only want others who are professionally competent become part of this community. That's the key thing. Of course, show to the world and your clients that you're bound by an ethical code of conduct. Trust is a very important thing. One must trust a CMT charter holder on what he says about the markets or about any research work. Trust is a very crucial element, because going right and wrong is the nature of the game. Okay. Commitment towards the community as a whole in spreading and sharing their knowledge base while being an active member. So, if you're an active member, you want to be a member, you must understand that you should have some sort of a commitment towards the community, and you want to share your knowledge base, right? Like, you want to share your space, you want to show your skills, you want to show your exposure, experience, discuss with members, maybe on an offline basis or in public basis, in chapter meetings, participate with co-hosts, co-guests, anything and more, right? Okay. So this is one line I'm quoting from the website. Professional membership is reserved for individuals who practice technical answers professionally. Okay, you must be a member in order to apply for and use the CMT designation, right? CMT charter is the beginning of a journey and not a destiny. I've already explained that, but this is something you should ponder about it. It's the most crucial line for me to say to any candidate. Okay, this is what a basic snapshot of what the CMT Association website tells you, that what you need to do to acquire professional membership, right? This is there in the website. You can go check it out. But today, what we are going to do is drill down into each aspects and give you some kind of a thumb rule guidelines, that what you should actually, in which way you should actually work on this. Okay, so that's the second thing. The sponsorship process. Now comes the main thing. How do you go about? Now, you know what is the sponsorship process for? It is for acquiring professional membership in the CMT association. Now, how to go about the sponsorship process, right? The sponsorship process has these steps in essence. Okay, so it's first selecting, approaching, communicating, confirming, submitting, final approval. I would rather ask Prasanjit to explain on this, how we have bifurcated, I mean, made the entire process in a step-by-step approach. Like, I would invite Prasanjit to just explain and in a bit for this.
Sure. Sure, ma'am. So basically, like when you have cleared your level two or level three, and then you are thinking about getting your charter, and then you actually have to find three sponsors, like who are going to vouch for you. So the whole thing should ideally start with you finding the right person who is kind of willing to sponsor you. And it is not about like who can sponsor me, just like anybody who sponsors me. The approach should not be like that, but kind of ideally wherein you also should look to choose the sponsor who can evaluate your work properly. And maybe because not every like everybody will have a specialization, right? After uh, years in the business, what happens is that every charter holder, not all, but many charter holders, they develop specialization in a particular domain. So let's say, for example, if your domain is also some X, right? So you would ideally want to get that connect with the sponsor. So therefore, find out who could be the best sponsor. Secondly, it is obviously very important for kind of get a thumbs up from the sponsor as well, that he is willing to sponsor you and he has the availability and all that. Second, after this is done, then you start exchanging your you know communication starts. So wherein you would probably exchange your work, and you obviously start with your background, and then understand whether you qualify for that or not, like for the sponsorship and the charter this thing. And then spend some reasonable amount of time, make sure that the sponsor understands you, and you also try to understand, learn things from him. He's going to be like a mentor to you. And eventually then, after you have exchanged a lot of research work, so the next step would be probably wherein you come into getting kind of a thumbs up, and you complete the formality. So these are basically the broad structure, and obviously Mohit and me are going to discuss all these steps in detail. So this was just to give you a top view of how things work. Mohit.
So yes, so Joel, can we go back to the deck, please? Right. So let me just revise this. We will go bit by one by one in every point. All right. So first is selecting your sponsor. Second is approaching your sponsor. Then the third is how do you communicate with your sponsor. Fourth is how do you get a confirmation from the sponsor, and then you ask him to submit this form, and then you get the final approval from the CMT association. Right. This is the bread and butter. Okay. In a nutshell, this is what the ideal process one should follow. The first thing is selecting and confirming the sponsor. Okay. Now here, the first aspect is connect with the sponsor. Feel free to discuss. You should basically, I'm trying to say is what sponsor or what kind of a person would have like would be ideal for you to select as a sponsor, like someone who knows, like if I am from commodity space, and I would probably search a sponsor who understands the commodity space, so I can show him my work and connect with him, and probably even expand my experience and exposure, right? So that is what this thing refers, that you should feel free to discuss with a sponsor and understand that whether he would like to sponsor you based on some synergies, some common thoughts about technical answers, markets, things like that, right? So you should just confirm with the sponsor, before going ahead. Even if he says yes, that is he comfortable with connecting with you, engaging, and evaluating your work, like basic know-how is required. All right. Obviously, you need 3 sponsors, okay, minimum, and no more than 1 sponsor can be affiliated with your current firm. Obviously, this point does reflect that you should try and approach sponsors outside your known space. This is what it reflects. I mean, there couldn't be any partiality that that any sponsor should do. That is why a sponsor should be outside of your professional space, which helps you, right? To reach out to people for gaining more insights. So this is what I've mentioned. Choosing sponsors from different fields or exposure can be really beneficial if you share, if you can share perspectives with diverse mindsets, right? If you know a sponsor, if you're in equity research, right, you get a sponsor who is in equity research. Maybe the second person should be in portfolio management, maybe the third person should be in commodities, or something else. So you share your work with all of them, you convince them, you interact with them, that this is how things can help you and help the sponsor, and you getting perspectives from different kind of mindset. Maybe even the sponsors overall experience, stuff like how old the charter holder is. All things matter. So this will provide you tremendous perspective. I mean, this is a golden opportunity to you know the sponsorship is actually a golden opportunity, to put it in one way. Now here comes the part, approaching the sponsor. You have to obviously introduce yourself, and you should ideally start with a brief background, sharing your work profile. All right. Maybe reveal your social media profiles to just confirm that you are what you are. You do what you do. You can use some validation. It helps the sponsor know that there is a genuine case. What all you have said is genuinely true. Make sure the sponsor feels adequately assured that you have valid and sufficient approved work experience. And we will discuss this approved work experience aspect of the sponsorship, right? So the candidate, at least in the start of introduction, if he knows that he has approved work experience, right, he should make sure that the sponsor is adequately assured, about this, and there's no confusion about this. So, the CMT Association website says that work must be full time. When you introduce yourself, you're obviously telling this. The first bullet says that you are sharing about your work profile, right? So you have to assure the sponsor that your work is full time. You are receiving compensation for your services. You are managing your own or your family's friend investment is not the case without compensation, and it does not constitute approved professional work experience, right? If you are managing anybody's money without compensation, it does not constitute approved professional work experience. You have to be professionally involved, right? Once you do that, set clear expectations with your sponsor. Tell him that this is the way you would like to proceed. If he has any way we would like to engage with you and you are fine with it, make sure that expectations are set clear with your sponsor. Okay, and only after that, go ahead, share your research work, start the process. Okay, you can also obviously share your official email IDs and stuff like that. Share, as in, I'm not referring to communication. You're only sharing that that you have an email ID of your organization, and you tell them that this, I'm genuinely employed or something, because the sponsorship process doesn't compel anybody to prove anything. It's all based on trust. Okay, but it's good that you give reasonable assurity to the sponsor about your details. That's a very key thing. Okay, communicating with the sponsor, that's the main thing. Now, once you have decided your sponsor, what and how do you communicate with the sponsor? Okay, first you have to communicate with the sponsor about your professional experience, right? So you start showcasing your professional experience. You can clearly state him what is your academic background and your work experience. So obviously, work experience is not just one two line as you write in your CV. You can share your work experience over time, like how it all depends. How do you gel with your sponsor at what level, right? You can share your emotions with any kind of market experience, or about practicing and technical answers, any key interest. Like, you can mention additional proficiencies, interest, skill sets. All right, so that is one thing. The second thing is, now you have to show him your professional competence also, right? You have cleared your level 3 exams, let's say, and now you have to, if you are involved in a professional space, you work in a professional environment using technical analysis, but the sponsor doesn't know this. You have told him that you do all this, right? How does he gain confidence that you do this? So in order to support this, you have to show your professional competence, right? How do you do that? One is, obviously, you can showcase your research work in depth and show the width of understanding of technical answer. Like, you try to show him a work which showcases your understanding about anything related to technical answers. That's the first thing. Obviously, a good thing to develop confidence with the sponsor or gel well, because a sponsor, assumingly, if it's an experienced person, you should try to, it's a good thumb rule that you make your efforts to highlight your core strengths, and this is where you will shine. I mean, the sponsor will be superly convinced that this is the candidate, this one must be in our community, because this is a person who has really good core strengths. So you should try to highlight your core strengths. If you are good in algorithm trading, you're good at Elliott wave, you're good at intermarket analysis, anything, you should highlight your core strengths. Obviously, now what happens is that a professional is involved in a kind of a assumingly a static space. So an equity analyst who uses technical answers day in day out is using equities as his research space, right? But you are advising your client with some research work of yours, but that research work is just limited to your workspace, right? In order to understand markets, in order to for you to understand the overall space of markets, overall space of technical answers, you will try and you know uh, explore more tools, more theories, more ways of analyzing market. And these things you should try and showcase to your sponsor at some level, so that he understands that you are not limited to what you do at your desk, because that is driven by your client requirements. That is not reflective of how you understand the overall technical analysis space, like how you use your tools and all. So it's not that you have to give a thorough and continuously a lot of stuff to your sponsor, but every now and then you have to engage with him to show him that this is what you do, and you do at an extra level, and this is what you understand. This is your space of understanding, right? Your space of understanding, you have to show it to your sponsor at some level. It's all to develop, again, conviction in the sponsor to say that this candidate will be a good add to the community. Again, the same thing, that this is important so that the sponsor is able to understand, evaluate the professional competence of the candidate over time. Okay, so if he is assured about you, he will be comfortable in sponsoring without any doubt. Okay, so obviously when you do all this, doing in a one short of time is not a good idea. Now this is a key thing. When you approach a sponsor, you obviously convince him that you are a professional in technical answer space, or in any space which uses technical answers. All right, and then when you try to showcase your professional competence cannot be shown in just one shot. Like you show some 2 3 reports, or you show some 2 3 ideas of yours, and then you expect the other person that this is good enough, will not work actually. I mean, if it works fine enough, if there is a kind of an understanding between the sponsor and candidate, it might help. But ideally, it in a human sense, someone needs to understand over time how you work with markets, how you work with your professional space. I personally uh, you know uh, wanted to engage with the sponsor for over a year, like because I wanted that the sponsor should tell me what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, or even it's not about wrong, right? Is this way of approach right, or there's something else I can add, the quality of report, maybe even the formatting, the presentation, stuff like that. If the sponsor is willing to tell me, why not? That feedback is so crucial. It just might help me to separate me from the crowd. That was the one thing. I think at this point of time, I'll ask Prasanjit to say some points if he has, that how you would recommend on this slide.
Well, Mohit, yes, of course. I mean, if I would share my experience, like, is the audio clear? Like, is it audible, Mohit, now?
Yeah, it's audible.
Great. So, I was talking about the experiences that I have. So, basically, what I have seen is that most of the people, like, coming to your point, like, try to showcase the width and the depth as well. So what does it mean? Basically, a lot of people what they do is they share only a certain type of charts. So they would like kind of send across a few charts on the indices and maybe few stocks, and that is it. And that too for the last maybe a month or so. So it's just not about the chart. So the knowledge that like you have cleared all the three levels, so you did not only learn how to only analyze charts, right? So you did learn about portfolio management, you did learn about money management, then systems designing. So where are those things? So it will be better that if you have expertise in those, and if you don't, then ideally you should build such expertise and use them. And then like when you apply for the sponsorship, you should have some kind of work in various dimensions also. So that is where the width thing comes in. And maybe for example, like you designed a system for your boss or like for your company, right? So you're working for a maybe a prop desk. Now you design a trading setup, okay? So while you do that, you would need to maybe do a back test or kind of do a performance evaluation, right? So even this is something different. Like it's not about sending a chart of the S&P or the Indian indices, right? So try and highlight different type of works, even if that includes a lot of mathematical and statistical analysis that you would have done, right? So it's not just charts. Of course, charts are very important because that's where you are probably playing your game. But then try to add more things because that shows that how much depth and breadth you have. That's one. Second is that the engagement with the sponsor should be slightly over a period of time. I mean, that helps in two things. One, you get to know each other well. Second, you are kind of sending the reports which are current, right? So, because in retrospect, I can always send you as a candidate like the reports that fell in line with the market, right? So, it is like a cherry picked report. I mean, there's nothing wrong in it, but then once you send your reports on a real-time basis, like expanding over a month, months and then months together, like for 6 months or about a year. So that is the ideal time, like wherein I, as a sponsor, will have a very good understanding about your understanding about the subject matter and who you are, how much maturity you have, because 1, 2, 3 levels you have done. Like theoretically, you are perfect, but when it comes to the real market, theory is here, practical knowledge is here. So there is always a huge gap again when you try to apply. Now, this CMT charter ensures or it kind of reflects or says that you are professionally capable, right? So I, as a sponsor, will want you to show me that expertise, wherein I can ask you, okay, what is the view, and I'm going to put like some crores behind your commentary. So that confidence has to be there, and that can only come if you send across the reports over a period of time. Yes, Mohit.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, Mohit.
Sorry, I think my PowerPoint is just stuck. Let me just restart the program.
Okay, no problem. So uh, we can continue like the points that we
Yeah.
discussed.
Let me
That
just a
is the whole
second.
idea. Like, I mean, when you are approaching the sponsor, not only the sponsor is going to test you in terms of your research work, but in terms of how as a person you behave and you react, and what is the level of maturity. Because it all comes down, right? When markets are like easy, when everything is going up, so there is nothing much to kind of in a way evaluate because everything kind of falls in place and you are very much mentally sound and you are just kind of happy to write good things about the markets. But when there is an inflection point, and that's where your skills come up, you know and they become visible to the sponsor. So that is why if it is over a period of time, that will help everybody to get a fair idea. Yeah,
Right.
Mohit, you can
So,
continue.
one request to all that we will not take any questions on the YouTube chat session, chat space. I request everyone to put questions on Discord because YouTube questions will get lost once the session is over. Okay, no questions in the comments, no question in the live section. Okay, please, that's a small request. So, going on to the next thing, right? So, as we said, the engagement has to be over a period of time. And obviously, we recommend that you read the letter from the president of CMT Association on the professional work requirement. It's quite easily visible in the professional membership requirement and is also posted on Discord. All right, so we're taking it further. Like what is a there's a kind of a good thought that how much you should engage with your sponsor. Obviously, you should consider engaged at some period of time. It's either a month or 2 months. It can't be like once in a while that you just share with connect with the sponsor, tell him that this is what it is. Um, you are a professional, ex, you are a professional and you do technical analysis in your professional space, and you show him some um, of your stuff, and it's done. It can't be like that, right? uh,
Maybe
Even
can
if
I suggest,
someone, yeah.
you had a wonderful experience during your sponsorship journey with Ralph. So it might be very interesting if you share with everyone what your journey was with Ralph and how, what happened there. Because that'll give everyone a sense. And for everyone who doesn't know, Ralph Akampora
Yeah, of
is
course.
one of the leaders of the CMT Association.
Yes,
So most,
I thought we will. I might do that after the session because there was a flow here. Uh, but
as
anyways,
you wish.
since you have now mentioned, no worries. See, so what? Let me just end the slide here. So, right. So we expect the candidate should consider a reasonable period of right. This gives the sponsor sufficient time to know the candidate. Obviously, if you engage over a period of time, only then the sponsor will know you, right? How you are, what person you are, how professional you are, a lot of things. Then the sponsor needs to do a bit of due diligence also, right? If someone says that just sponsor me, who, I mean, I need to know the person a bit. I need to do some checks and things like, check your work. I'm not rating your work, but I'm do evaluating your work, that does it meet some professional standards, right? And I mean, there is no hard line, but obviously something less than 3 months would reflect that you have really not. I mean, unless someone meets every day and then in just 2 weeks become buddies and they know each other very well, it's a rare case, right, in today's world. So that's why, I mean, by on an average, 2 3 months is bare minimum that you understand a person in thoroughly, and it can span up to a few years also, depending on situations, right? Which is where I'll share my experience. Let me share that just as I complete the slide. So even the sponsor knows the candidate well, the candidate must give the sponsor sufficient time, even if the sponsor knows, right? Because it's there is no way that it can be guaranteed that you know someone well, but it's a very rare case that you have checked his reports, you have checked his work level, and each and everything what is required in a sponsorship. If in case you have done all that already, you know the person in and out well, right? I mean, knowing is not enough. Understanding his work is also important, right? I may know someone, like I know Prasanjit personally, right? I know his a little work. He knows something about myself. But if I ask him for sponsorship as of today, I do need to give him quality content, what I can produce, right? I mean, I would have to show him to him at least, right? Otherwise, what's the point? And I would love to show him because I will get a good feedback from him, right? So this is the
There is
advantage.
a
This is not a
difference.
stress thing. Yeah, yeah, Prasanjit, you want to come in?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I think one small point. There is a difference between knowing someone personally and knowing someone professionally. So that is what has to be understood. This point. Please continue.
Right. So this is the advantage, that the longer and importantly quality conversations and sharing of your work can help a candidate develop a strong network with the sponsors and the existing CMT community, right? This will be helpful in the candidate's career growth and knowledge exposure. You see, the CMT Association, the office from India, headed by Joel, they keep continuously strive to give job opportunities, right? But what goes with job opportunities is referrals. If your sponsor has known your work well, and if people in the CMT community know your work well, it becomes easier to recommend someone, and that would be a piece. I mean, in a relatively easier way to get a job, change your jobs or whatever. I mean, you won't be out of options. That's so critical. So okay, now there's one more thing, is that in the sponsorship process, when you communicate with the sponsor, you should also strive to understand what the CMT community is all about, right? Because finally you are taking the membership, right? The professional membership in what? You're a member in the CMT community. So what the community is all about, you ought to know all this also, right? So you can probably try to understand the commitments a community has and needs both, and the visions and goals of the community also, which obviously we have spoken in the last few slides. But these things you have to do with the sponsor at some level, like how does this, if because sponsor is an existing professional member, you need to ask him some generic questions outside your professional space, that what the CMT community is doing, what things are happening, what are the initiatives taken, who all are involved, stuff like that, and what things can be done. There might be something for you, and there might be something else might be beneficial by you entering this space. All things are possible. So the candidate should explore and understand the CMT community and its commitments. This is something not in the sponsorship process, but can be used because you are finally interacting with the sponsor. There's something you should spice it up. You can do your personal talks, you can talk about markets, but this is something an added thumb rule or a thought. And obviously then it will help you understand how you can involve. So now coming back to my experience, so when I was a candidate, I was not having enough experience on my side. When I cleared my level 3, I needed few a year or so to have my 3 years of experience sufficiently for using technical answers. And even though that wasn't really a case, because my past experience also involved technical answers, but I wanted to keep it very clear. So I approached a few of my friends and to understand the sponsorship process, because again there is limited understanding how to go about this. And one of my friends was like quite comfortable in sponsoring me. He knew my work and all, but then I didn't see any value with him. I obviously asked him to sponsor me because of my good relation, but I said, what's the value? Like, I will share him my work. He knows my work already. He was an existing charter holder, and he was also a kind of a new I mean, a not very veteran kind of a person. And I thought that this is a wonderful opportunity that I could share my work with someone highly experienced. The CMT community has around, I think, 1,700 charter holders, if I'm right. That's maybe around, I don't know, maybe around 200 of
Close
them
to 2,000
have.
charter holders,
Sorry.
Mohit. Just under 2,000 charter holders right now.
Just under 2000, right? But I'm just giving a weird, I mean, random guess that maybe around 200 charter holders out of them might be might have an experience of 20 or 30 years old, right?
Easily, easily,
Easily,
easily.
right? Maybe 30 years of experience. My current
That's
experience is, let's say, around 10 to 15 years, something like that. 10 years right now, and I'm referring my experience during my sponsorship process. So I thought I need to get a sponsor who is very experienced, um, open to sponsoring to someone of less experience or something like that, and is passionate to see others research, of so I had a short introduction with our, I should say, Sir Ralph and Kempora, because I met him in I think it was the first summit in India, I think in 2010 9. I'm sorry, can't remember the year, but I met him that time. um, I had a good brief talk with him, with other fellow candidates and all. And I had read about him, that how he, about his experiences with the handling with his advisory, how he has worked with clients. He's a public figure, so he does tend to give his opinions on public, and technical analysis does involve sharing your opinions, right? And giving your opinions with some sort of maturity, knowing the impact of it. These things are important to learn. Otherwise, it's just a dull subject that way, if you're not giving spirit to it. So I had, over time, I had understood this about him. And because I got introduced to him in a summit, I made a point to give him write a mail to him that can you sponsor me? And he was so delighted that I asked. And the only thing I want to do is write him research work with his convenience. Like, I didn't want to bug him that, when will you sponsor me, or is this good enough, or that is good enough. I just kept sending him as per his convenience, obviously not every day, because even someone like him who's I mean, at that moment is busy with his own work and schedule. He's finding space to see my work, right? So I started giving him some work. I started asking him, like, how would you like me to send my work? Weekly once, monthly once, anything is fine. He was quite open, right? He didn't ask me anything specific, but he said, keep going at, like, I would like to see your work, no worries, like, it's a good thing to see. And I started sharing him whatever I can develop an opinion on, like, maybe currencies. I mean, I had very less exposure Okay, I had experience in equity trading around that time. I had just started a few years back my technical analysis research work, but then it's not like I had experience or exposure towards everything. But I started exploring everything which I can. I mean, that time the internet was not that great also, but you still it was there, and data availability was less. But I started exploring everything and exploring everything and thinking how I can analyze things differently, which helps me understand the subject. And I started sharing him one by one. And I thought, like, let me just share with him. I will not tell him to end the sponsorship process. I mean, I want his feedback. I want his opinion. I want his little bit of pep talk, motivating me. Sometimes if I write a report, he used to tell me that this is good, this will help you, and you will, after some time, you will enter into a personal conversation of some sort, like, right? Um uh, so this is how it went out. And one fine day he said, Mohit, it's good enough, and I would like to sponsor you, right? And this came from him. I didn't ask him to sponsor me immediately, right? This came from him. So it was like he was crediting me enough. I mean, after seeing enough of my work, like, he saw and he was convinced, rather than just pushing him that, you sponsor me. And my clear goal was to get his feedback, even in little sense, right? He's a market professional, he's a veteran. His take on my work, even if he's able to say two lines, will add very good value. Actually, believe me, it adds a lot of value. Okay, so this was my space. So when I got sponsorship from him, I got sponsorship from my couple of friends, and I was good to go. But I did not stretch that. I'm sorry, I did not shorten the process just to make it quick and lose the opportunity to network with fellow charter holders. So it's very important that you choose the right charter holders. Right, as in, there's nothing as right. Choose the right for you, which can be good for you, right? And you engage with them, right? You want to network with them, you want to know them. And what's the harm? This is this is something I think even others have done, even some, but I don't think all have done, right? But those who do end up developing strong bonds, strong relationships, strong community, and then they stick to this profession, whichever involves technology, and they feel good about it. So this is how it works. I mean, so let me just now continue with the slide.
Just a quick time check,
Yeah,
Mohit. We are about 50 minutes into the session,
sure,
right?
sure, sure. Right. So, okay, so just to confirm that, all the steps are benefit for the candidate, right? All this thing is not like a hard edge, bedrock principle that you have to follow at all cost, but it's all good for you. And it's crucial for sponsors to vouch for, vouch for the candidate. So finally, your thing is done. You, the sponsor feels assured about you. But yeah, note, if you do all this, and maybe if your work is not all up to the mark, things are not looking good, doesn't so there is a possibility the sponsor might reject you. It is possible, right? So sharing work doesn't guarantee approval. That's what I want to reflect. Sponsor should be content while in the final, once it's the finalization time is there, the sponsor should be content, and he is confident about the candidate, that he'll be a good add to the community. And then you should typically expect the sponsor will himself give your consent to you, and ask that, provide me with the sponsorship form link, and I'll do the formalities to sponsor you. And successful completion, grant you professional membership and CMT designation. And this is where your journey starts. This is not where your journey ends, it is where it starts. Okay, a couple of quick things, maybe, typical challenges which you face, that, if you have less than, so, professional experience is not enough. It's best would be to find sponsors, engage with them over a period of time, till you can get good amount of experience. It's not like you are out of options. You can still start a sponsorship process. If you don't have approved professional experience, still you can, consult a sponsor, uh, and start the sponsorship process, and keep doing your required search for a professional, a career opportunity which involves technical answers. Okay, if the sponsor is not content, in some case, if the sponsor is not content, you should, and he thinks you're not up to the mark, you should seek clarification with him, ask for guidance and help. I mean, these are some obvious thumb rules, right? Build desired skill sets, capabilities, and obviously try to resubmit work. So it's again a kind of a process where you are networking, understanding with the sponsor how to go about the shortcomings, right? If you're unable to find sponsors, now that could be sometimes a case, right? So uh, because if you don't have a good enough experience, no one can look at your work, I mean, right? So maybe don't worry in this such case. You should want to understand what all skill sets you have to learn to become a professional, and then maybe or maybe have a good expertise on the technical answers research work, so that then that you can share with your sponsors, and then they might be comfortable to uh, communicate and engage with you the sponsorship process. So this is one of the key highlights. Okay, is that President quotes Brett William. The unfortunate truth for CMT candidates who have to get a job in finance is that you will need to wait to apply for membership until you can satisfy the work requirement. But remember, this does not require you have a job in trading or investing per se. Your work experience just has to be related to field of finance in some capacity. So this is the key line for all candidates. All right, so that's it. So once you're a member, the membership experience, I mean, congratulations on getting the membership. Now, just a quick sneak peek on your journey ahead. Like, you should not stop sharing your body of knowledge. It's now is the time. Once you become a CMT charter holder, come engage with the community, network with fellow members. You have to take all the value from the membership, right? You can't sit idle, right? Extend relations beyond sponsors. That's a key thing. With the advent of virtual world, it becomes very critical, okay, that members connect and engage with the community, at least at some level, right? A monthly basis once, if not weekly. It helps to know that in the community space where our members, right? Something very important, like just like a family, like who's where. I mean, I'm not saying everyone has to give the details, share the real work, but a bit of connection is always helpful. Also, obviously, CMT Association, from so many years has built such a huge plethora of knowledge in form of webcast, podcast. All this you can go through. It takes hell of a time to go through, but you can find your space in that also, and it will really help you. And it does require time. And then you need to discuss with your members, right? So this is what is the journey, right? Because till now you are only studying for exams. Now you need to explore this. Maybe you're exploring during your exams, but I think this exploring, requires a lot of time. Uh, so that's why continuing the professional membership helps one stay focused and gain updated exposure on the investment and advancements on the world of technical skills. That's right, and the global industry. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like when the new tools comes, new theories come, new perspectives comes. You can see in some of the summits how some of the sessions are really out of the way. I mean, what we have never seen. I mean, even in chapter meetings in India, some of the sessions are really out of the conventional way of researching. So that's it. We are good to go now for FAQ. Your journey starts here. Uh,
I'd also
on
like
to you,
to
Joel.
invite Alvin
Maybe
to share
okay.
some comments.
Prasanjit, any final thoughts or thoughts you want to share, and maybe we can see how the questions come through.
Yeah, just one quick note on what we discussed. Basically, to the new candidates, uh, like getting, kind of getting into an engagement with a sponsor, you should not only think of it like someone who is willing to sponsor you and wherein you can get that three-letter word behind your name. It is much more beyond that. I mean, you are getting a person who is so much experienced, and maybe you as a fresher and maybe new in the industry, you have quite certain things to learn from him, because I might be, as a fresher, I'm learning things new, right? Wherein I'm trying to connect the theory and the practical world. But this guy, with maybe over like 20 years of experience, he is already a master of it. So if you have any original work in your mind, if you have any thought processes in your mind, you can always, like a mentor, go back to him and seek advices like how you can improve, what are the things. So all of it, like it's a free membership, I mean mentorship that you are getting. So this was it.
That's true. It's a very valid point, Prasanjit. And I think from what I've come to understand over the time that I've spent with the CMT Association, it is these relationships that actually make this journey worth its while. So thanks, Itan, for your comments on that. I'd like to invite, before we jump over to questions, I'd like to invite Alvin Kressler, the CEO of the CMT Association, to share a few comments about this initiative by Mohit, Prasenjit, and the other charter holders, and just a few thoughts on the sponsorship process, and any other words of advice, Alvin, for candidates.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks everybody for doing this, Mohit and Rashanat. This is very helpful, I think, from the standpoint of kind of explaining the rationale and reasoning behind membership. It really was, when you think back about the organization, about building a network of individuals who were interested in using the tools of technical analysis, which, as you all are aware, is a smaller community than the group that uses the fundamental side of things exclusively. And that's just really because historically it's not been taught in the schools as much. And it's starting to move into that. But as we know, it's a very useful set of tools and a discipline in the marketplace, and especially when combined with the fundamentals. And that's what we always try and highlight, is that I think many years ago it was an either or, and we really look at it as no, it's an and. And so we really focus that. But the idea behind the sponsorship for members was really to give opportunities, as Mohit was describing, to meet and get to know fellow practitioners, so that you could develop a network of individuals who share your passion for using technical analysis. And so when we look at that's really the genesis behind it. And the requirement of professional is so that that your network is individuals who are using it professionally, getting paid for having an opinion on the marketplace and investing other people's money, or helping other people to invest their money, and or firms. So that's really what's behind the genesis of that. It's not to say that we don't and don't help or encourage the adoption of technical analysis more broadly, meaning out into the retail environment. But there are other groups that are more appropriate for the individual investor. We're trying to build it as a very institutional level of the membership and the community and the camaraderie of the institutional investors. And as Mohit pointed out, guys like Rafa Kampora show up regularly to events and are very happy to engage with you and help you along. And most of them will tell you that, it was through their own networking that they were able to evolve their careers and move themselves forward. And so you'll find, as you go through your career, especially if you're early in your career, that it's those networks and that network of friends and the community that you build will help you along the way, and may actually lead you to new positions and new roles down the road that you may not, that aren't even on the horizon for you today. But 3-4 years from now, you may get that random call from somebody you've kept in touch with and you communicate with regularly, who says, "Hey, have you seen Kotak is looking for a new chief investment officer. I know the hiring manager, and I think you'd be perfect for that role." That's the type of stuff that can come out from building your network of professionals, not just within, if you're in Mumbai, within the city of Mumbai, but globally. It's always amazing how many of my people in my network I've ended up meeting in other cities. I laugh. There's a contact here when I first took the role in 2016, who I had known since my days at the New York Society of Securities Analysts, now CFA New York. And he and I have been trying to connect up, but between our two travel schedules, we weren't able to meet up in New York City. And lo and behold, turns out we were meeting with the same company in Hong Kong about an hour apart. And so what we just did is reached out to the person we were meeting with, and we made it a joint meeting and did it over 2 hours of a lunch, and got to connect up. And turns out that I didn't know he knew that client, and he didn't know I knew that client. But then we ended up, building a stronger network. So it's amazing as you build those networks, what can help you in your career. we're here as an association to obviously further the acceptance and adoption of technical analysis, but also to support the members. And those are many of the initiatives Joel and Kazad and the team have been rolling out over the last year. And, I really encourage you to take advantage of all of that. I don't want to take too much more time, but Joel, if any questions or anything like that, happy to answer.
Wonderful. Thanks, Don Alvin. So I'll relay one question. I've been answering most questions directly on Discord. So for most of you who would like to check out the questions that have come from the others, for this time around, what we did was we used one of the open channels to relay most of our questions and answer them. But I definitely encourage each of you, all of you who have cleared your level 3, now have access to the role charter pending, and therefore you also have access to an exclusive channel just for you to kind of get in touch with each other. And the way we've arranged the access to the channels is that charter holders have access to all the channels that are, let's call it, junior to them in the kind of CMT association journey. And charter pending folks who've cleared their level 3 have access to the channels for candidates level 1, 2, and 3. And we've seen in over the past couple of exam cycles since we've implemented Discord that's created very interesting opportunities for candidates to engage with folks junior to them and senior to them. So I definitely encourage all of you to stay active on Discord. It's been a wonderful experience for us. And now what we're trying to do is build a backend support system to Discord so that we can make this a much richer space to network. There are also a couple of meeting rooms that we've set up within the premium access section. So you can get in there, have face-to-face conversations. And Mohit, Prasenjit, if it's possible, you can spend a few minutes in those rooms as well, and folks can kind of join you and have a chat there. Just one question, Alvin, maybe you can share some light on, or maybe this is something for us to take to the admissions committee as well. Priyanka asks that she's a chartered accountant. So will her articleship experience of 3 years in the field of finance, but it's not front office roles, it's obviously in an accounting role, will that be eligible as work experience?
Yeah, and actually, this is as Joel knows very well, what I've been working with over the last year with the admissions committee and the board. And the board is actually extended to take a look at it. I think Mohit recently met with the committee of the board that's working on taking a new look at the process of sponsorship and membership and requirements around that. And that question kind of goes to the heart of one of the questions I've asked the committee of the board to look at is historically the experience level and the idea of experience was set up to look at what we would call traditional investing roles, meaning analyst, portfolio manager, trader, client, risk manager within the investment team. And one of the things I've really looked at and asked the committee about is should we be really starting to look beyond that and say what we're really trying to do is get the much broader community of finance to understand technical analysis, the usage and tools. And that goes into not just those call them frontline roles, but starts to go into the roles of the folks who do the accounting and the bookkeeping, so they understand what their team is doing. We know in today's environment, there's a large group of individuals who are building the programs and algorithms. We really want those individuals to have the charter because I will tell you, it makes the conversation between the portfolio manager and trader and that programming team a lot smoother if the programming team understands technical analysis, because you can take it what might be a 2-hour discussion of why you're trying to do something and give them everything below that into a 5 or 10 minute conversation. Hey, I'm trying to use whatever, this oscillator. This is what I'm looking for to come out in terms of the framework of that discussion. That can be a 5-minute discussion if your programmer understands technical analysis and goes in and looks at that particular oscillator and says, oh, I see what he's trying to do. Okay, great. I can program that. I think the same thing happens. And so I can't give you a yes or no answer on the chartered accountant right now. I think some of it will depend on what you've done as a chartered accountant. There are chartered accountants who work in family offices, for example, that are part of the investment decision making process for their client. They are working with the portfolio team and saying, um, they may not be picking the exact securities, but they are working with the investment team on the allocation of assets between asset classes and security classes. And so I would argue absolutely somebody who's a chartered accountant who's working with the team in that capacity is absolutely doing stuff within the investment world, and that experience should, to a certain degree, count. I would say that if you're a chartered accountant and you're really doing accounts payables or accounts receivables, it gets a little tougher to make that call. Yes, you have the professional experience of being a professional finance, a professional in finance, but your application is really in traditional straight bookkeeping, not in a sense of asset allocation. So I think it gets a little harder to make the call that 3 years is directly relatable to investment experience. But I do think there's some ways that the committee can work with that and try to define that a little bit more clearly. And right now, in a strict sense, they would probably say no to that experience of a bookkeeper. They might ask a lot of questions around the asset allocation type of experience. They might ask you to clarify that a little bit, but I would say they would probably come down on this side of a good portion of that experience would count to the
That makes sense. I think, and so that is where once again this kind of ties back into what Sanjeet and Mohit have been saying, which is the value of having a CMT charter holder to walk you through this journey will help you to also understand the nuances, because the admissions committee also relies on what the sponsors have to say about the quality of experience of the candidate as they apply. So it's a two-way kind of, the charter holder plays a key role as a sponsor between the applicant for a charter and the admissions committee. So
Yeah.
understanding that nuance is important.
And we understand that for some folks, the 3 year experience is you're only 2 years on the job and you completed all three levels. But part of that is, and the waiting period is so that you gain experience, and it's your profession. In many regards, it's like your residency as a doctor. When you see a resident or an intern um, in the hospital, um, they've completed all of their education, their formal education at that point. They've taken all their classes, they've passed all their tests. Now they're in the period of time where they have a senior doctor who is working and overseeing their work in a live practical environment. To a certain extent, that's a little bit what sponsorship is for those folks who are at the 2 year mark, having completed all 3 years. And I don't think you need to look at it as really a negative. It's an opportunity, as Mohit was saying, that, Ralph was looking over his work. Ralph was, and I'm sure there were conversations where, they were, prodding each other around, hey, this is what I'm seeing, this is why I'm seeing it. And there was questions back and forth, and not just really a one-way communication of Mohit providing the work, but actually Ralph coming back to him and asking questions, because quite frankly, Mohit might have spotted something that Ralph hadn't spotted in the market, and that prompted Ralph to look at something. So, again, it's a two-way kind of development, and that's, I think, a way to think about that sponsorship window, especially for those who have not been in the field for long. It's an opportunity for you to develop in your usage of the tools.
Thank you, Alvin. I think we have one last question. Kaiser, do you want to relay that?
Yep. So we have one more question, Alvin. Can I reach out to potential sponsors through the members directory? Do they have their emails there?
Yeah, and actually, I think it's been a while since I've actually dove into that section under the member. We just changed it recently. I think there is a search that says, or there used to be. It might have to bring it back up, that they're willing to sponsor. That's actually a checkbox in members' profile, that if they are willing to sponsor, and there are quite a few members who are willing to sponsor. I want to say it's well over 1,000. So that should be a search that's in there. And if not, we can obviously run it and share some of, like, especially if you're looking for people in your area, and understand that we know that in certain markets, there might only be a handful of charter holders. And so you might need to um, meet people outside your most immediate regional area. I just saw the last question. Yes, teaching experience counts. we grant professors, um, obviously the work professors do is different than the work that a trader or portfolio manager might do, in terms of, when you think about it, is when professors are working around research, they're trying to understand the dynamics and interpret the behavior of the actors and why things are working, or the behavior of the marketplace. And so absolutely, professors work that way. Um, yeah, that works. The next question, because that you just put up.
Yep.
Yes, that actually is one of the big changes. I think it was about 5 years ago. The requirement was that you use technical analysis as the principal tool, and that was geared to the very old model of looking at the sell side and the traders. And we had a lot of discussion around it and said, but why aren't we trying to find and encourage, fundamental portfolio managers using it? They're not going to use it as their primary. They're going to use it as one of their tools. And in fact, I think what's really been, for me, interesting to watch over the last 5 years closely is the number of investors, professional investors, who are regarded as really some of the best in the world at long-term investing. They have started to share a little bit more about their process. And what's very interesting is that some of the individuals who are held out as these esteemed fundamental value investors, when you started to peel the layers of the onion back, you started to realize that, oh yeah, they might have developed their entire thesis around the fundamentals, but when they actually go to enter, exit, and manage their positions, it is entirely done on a technical basis in conjunction with their fundamental view and thesis. So it's been very interesting to watch, and we've started to see more and more of these kind of, like I say, highly regarded value or value oriented institutional investors that have a decade track record that is top tier. And when they've started to recently talk about their processes, what is really fascinating is how many of them have deployed technical analysis in some aspect in their process. And I would argue that the individuals who show up regularly in that kind of year in and year out top decile of performance, it's the exception, not the rule, for the individual who doesn't use. The non-technical user is the exception. Most of the folks who are viewed as the top are actually doing both. They're doing fundamental and technical, or
That's
quant. And in my view, quant at the end of the day is the mathematical representation of the technical tools.
that's so
That
true.
the way when I look at most of the quant models out there, they will incorporate some fundamental, but most of the quant models, the heavy duty ones, are really mathematical representations of technical tools that we know. They're just
That's
very complexly put together, but that's what they are.
right. Just the one last nuance to Nitish's last question, Alvin, is that if someone does fundamental and quant-based research for their personal investments,
Mm-hmm.
that would not count as professional experience, right?
Well, the personal wouldn't, but the fundamental would. And so that's been the big change. 5-6 years ago, the fundamental wouldn't have necessarily counted in the eyes of the admissions committee. And what we changed about 5 or 6 years ago was that does count. You are an active participant. And the fact that you are using fundamental in your work, and you're trying to use technical and quant at home, I would make the argument that the quant and technical has started to seep into your professional work.
Right,
Um,
right.
you're starting to use those tools um, in terms of how you're communicating internally your what you're doing to your with your team. Um,
That's
and it's not a bad thing. I think it's just that it is, and so that's why the fundamental we have Tom O'Halloran. He's a senior portfolio manager at Lord Abbett here in New York. He is one of the top performing funds in the country at U.S. equity funds. He is set on stage, on our stage presenting. He came into this and he runs it primarily as a fundamental, but he does not make a move without talking to his technical analyst on his team. Um, so again, everything they're doing is fundamental in that shop. But he's now has more team members who are pursuing the designation who are not the technical analysts on his team. They are analysts on his team who are coming
right.
through and getting the designation. Kind of the same thing for you.
That makes sense, Alvin. Thanks a ton. I think with that we've come to the end of the questions that we have, but we can continue the conversation back on Discord. And I really want to thank you, Alvin, and especially Mohit and Prasenjit for having taken up this time supporting Kaizad and me in this effort to kind of start a conversation among our charter pending members and see how we can turn that into a more long-lasting community. Once again, I'd welcome everyone to uh, engage with each other on Discord, and I think it's going to be a fun journey going forward. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Joe.
you, everyone.
Bye
See you on
bye.
Discord. Bye bye.
Bye.